Just Baseball Show on June 24th. It's a Tuesday if you're listening to this. Jack Aram. As always, we are presented by the fine folks at BetMGM. We got a couple of things on the top of the docket. There are some rocket ships making their way through minor league baseball right now. I just saw Didier Fuentes, his major league debut at 20 years and 3 days old. Chase Burns is set to debut today for the Cincinnati Reds against the New York Yankees. Meanwhile, he leapfrogged the top pitching prospect in baseball that is really struggling in the month of June. We're going to dive into that. And then I threw on half of a tinfoil hat. I don't feel comfortable saying that I threw on a tinfoil hat because Peter like blows me out of the water when it comes to that. So
When Peter's tinfoil hat's on, it's a full tinfoil hat.
yeah, it's like a tinfoil suit that he wears
Well, I actually
when
saw
he puts
somebody
it
at the
on.
Panthers parade. I didn't go, but I saw on social. They had a tinfoil Stanley Cup on their head.
That's
Like that's
perfect.
pretty much what when Peter's breaking out the trade machine. Sometimes I think that's what he's got going on.
I'm stunned that person didn't roast South Florida Heat with tinfoil on their head. Are you kidding me?
I apparently a lot of people did. Unfortunately, like
Yeah,
there was
dude.
the paramedics were busy on just people just dehydrated and everything. It's just crazy seeing it become a spectacle down here. Like it's so quickly where it was like 400,000 people on Fort Lauderdale Beach for a
Dude.
team that couldn't draw anything
Dude,
a few years
copious
ago.
amounts of alcohol and South Florida in late June makes
What could go
that's
wrong? And a
that's
lot
a
of
match
people
made in
packed
hell.
in like sardines. Who could see anything going wrong?
So bad. I also feel really bad for a pitcher out west, and I want to kind of express my sympathy for the situation that he has going on right now. That's all coming up in a moment, but you guys just finished up a roundup. This was a heck of a weekend in Major League Baseball, and,
Oh, yeah.
and I love checking in on guys like Cal Raleigh in Chicago. That was unbelievable what he has
Yep.
done, and this wasn't on the docket. I just need to get some thoughts out about Cal Raleigh. This guy should be the MVP front runner. I understand Judge is doing
Oh,
what he's doing. I know. And I understand that I'm guilty of the LeBron effect here, where I just take Judge for granted. I am taking Aaron Judge for granted right now because we've seen this from him for 3, 4 years now. What Raleigh is doing is the best catcher season we have ever seen. And how can we not reward that? He just passed Johnny Bench for the most homers by a catcher before the All Star break. This dude has 31 pumps on June 23rd. How can we not reward this? He won a platinum glove last year, and he has 31 bombs in 3 months this year. It sucks, and it's going to be brutal when Judge doesn't win the MVP. But man, if I had a vote right now and the season ended today, Cal Raleigh's my AL MVP.
up next on First Take
I mean,
is
come
Aaron
on,
Judge
man.
really the MVP?
Come on,
I
man.
had
Like,
to. That was too easy. I hear what you're saying. I honestly I think if it ended today, I think it actually hurts your argument more. I think that the argument is if he extrapolates this over the whole season and he hits 60 as a catcher, you may have to say screw WAR and screw batting average. But if the season ended today, we're talking about almost a 100-point gap in batting average, at 80% or 80-point gap in on base percentage, and what would that be? It's quick math is like a 60 point or 58-point bump in slug.
yeah,
I understand one's a catcher and the other's a corner outfielder and one's a really good catcher, but don't you think that it would help his case more if he had a full catcher season we've never seen versus if the season ended right now?
sure. But also, I'm in love with what he's doing right now.
Oh,
And
I don't blame you. I don't know. Like there is a chance that he has the best catcher season we've ever seen.
and we
And in
have
that
to
case,
reward
yeah, if
that.
I agree. But that's why I think right now I have to give it to Judge. But if he does have an unprecedented catcher season, but then it goes back to the conversation of, well, like when we talk about Otani versus everybody else, like what does everybody else have to do type of thing. At the end of the day, like, are we going to penalize Aaron Judge because he doesn't catch, or is it just you're so much further rewarding a Cal Raleigh because he does catch? I, it's really hard for me. I think he's got to hit 60 plus for this to be, and he's on pace to do that. But I think he's got to hit 60,
This is
no
such an
doubt.
this is such an MLB The Show conversation right now. Would you prefer the catcher that hit 60 pumps or the outfielder that hit 400? And here's the thing, man, we could be tracking for an all-time conversation, the best catching season ever or the first 400 season since Teddy Ballgame. If Judge hits 390, Judge
Well,
probably wins the MVP, but if he
I think
hits
if it's north of 350, I think that's insane.
it
The
is
batting average
insane.
in the league is 240.
It's so tough. God, I wish they were in different leagues.
Do you know what the highest home run total is by a catcher since 2000?
Since 2000, does Sal Perez 49, does that count?
Yeah, it's a Sal Perez 48 in 2021, and that's
Yeah.
like not even he had a 2.7 WAR. I'm trying to go all the way, dude. I mean, this is crazy. Unless I'm missing something, I'm going all the way back to let's proceed Johnny Bench, right? Like let's go all the way back here. It really would be a season we've never. It already kind of is a season that we've never seen
So
from a
that's my
catcher.
thing. And like, I don't honestly, I don't think shortstop or center field, any other position has this cachet. I think there is no other position in baseball that we have to reward the best position ever in Major League Baseball or the best season ever at that position except catcher. I think we have to reward the best catching season we've ever
It
seen.
would be the best catching season ever. I do think that's an interesting aspect to this because it he by the way, what's he at? 31 home runs. That
Yeah.
would tie Gary Carter and Johnny Bench's 1977 season as already the 29th highest home run output since 1960 by a catcher. And we're not even halfway through at this point. The best season home run output wise is Salvi in 2021. But if you go by kind of everything, Johnny Bench in 1970 hit 45 home runs and hit 293, 345, 587. It's a 144 WRC plus. It's still not what Cal Raleigh's doing right now. Maybe the defense was better. We don't have the same metrics, but it really helps Cal Raleigh's case that he's not Salvador Perez. And I don't mean that to be
Yes.
like Salvador Perez slander, but like it just really helps his case that he's a good defender.
Of
And
course.
even though he's not defending at the best of his ability this year, like I think if you look at some of the advanced analytics, like he's not blocking or stealing strikes quite at the same clip. But I think if he goes, finishes a year and still has an above average defensive season as well, it'll be really, really hard to argue against it. I think you start looking at 97 Piazza hit 362 with 40 homers, and even then, like he might beat that by 20 homers.
Yeah.
So yeah, now you got my mind going.
I know.
Whew.
I know. Here's the thing that jumps out to me most about Raleigh this year. 75 plate appearances as a DH. He's hitting 197 with a 659 OPS. 253 plate appearances as a catcher. He's hitting 297 with an 1156 OPS. This guy needs to catch to hit. And if he catches 140 times this year and he rips off an 1100 OPS and he hits 55, 60 homers, he's my MVP. And I'm sorry for turning into Stephen A, but you know what?
No, I had to.
I
I
don't
don't
play
think you are.
solid. I don't play solitaire while watching Cal Raleigh hit. That's
No.
for damn sure. So,
That is true. It was easy. It was low hanging fruit.
super low hanging fruit.
I think it's a great conversation though, and we're getting there.
Yeah.
It kind of breaks my brain a little bit to be honest, but that's the fun part is where we've had some really unique potential MVP conversations, whether it's what Otani brings to the table against an Aaron Judge at one point, or
Yeah.
what now we get with a catcher potentially having the best season he's ever had. Baseball's just in a wonderful spot talent wise. We're gonna talk about some young guys that are making impacts. We just on the roundup talked about Junior Caminero, who looks
Yeah.
like he's arrived and given the Rays a much needed replacement star here. And then you have a James Wood who looks like he could hit 50 this year. Like, and the ball is not supposed to be carrying as far, right?
No.
Like it's supposed to be dead this year. And
I don't,
it
David
doesn't seem like
Sampson
it.
said it's not supposed to be dead.
That is true. David Sampson said that Andrew McCutchen does not have good
He's a
sources.
liar. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Andrew McCutchen does not have good sources. Probably one of the most well respected players in the game right now. But yeah, I mean, I don't think his sources are any good, right?
Oh, well. Hey, after 9.5 minutes on something that was not even on the rundown, let's get back to the rundown here.
That's your fault.
Yeah, it is totally my fault. Didier Fuentes of the Atlanta Braves made his major league debut, and I want to talk about him before we get to Chase Burns, who again makes his major league debut today. It's a pretty similar conversation between Fuentes and Chase Burns. Now, Burns came with the cachet and the $9 million ticket for being the second overall pick in the draft. Didier Fuentes, at 20 years and 3 days old, made his major league debut for the Atlanta Braves. This guy was a $75,000 IFA signing in 2022 out of Colombia. Didier Fuentes, all of 2024, was really good, but he threw 76 innings in low A with the Augusta Green Jackets, best name in minor league baseball. In 17 starts in low A Augusta, he had a 2.74 ERA. He punched out 12 hitters per nine. It was awesome. So this year, he gets assigned to high A Rome. 13 innings across 3 starts in high A. Then he goes to double A, throws 21 and 2/3 innings across 5 starts. Then he goes to triple A, makes a start, K6, doesn't walk anyone, went 4 and 2/3 innings of 1-run ball. So after 3 starts in high A, 5 starts in double A, and a start in triple A, he makes his major league debut 3 days after his 20th birthday. And against the Marlins in Miami, 5 innings, 4 runs, 3 of which came on a 3-run home run from Agustin Ramirez. He K'd 3 and walked 1. The line doesn't look totally awesome, and at the end of the day, his head hits the pillow with a 7.2 ERA. Watching this guy up close and personal, you had a 70 future grade on his fastball. It might be 70 now. Looking at what this guy did with the heater, and in the minor leagues, he was 70% fastball usage. But he is one of the lower release heights among starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. It's like a 5.1, 5.2 release height. He gets vert, and it was 97-98 on Friday in his Major League debut. At 20 years old, this guy was beating Major League hitters with fastballs. It was an unbelievable fastball to watch, and it took a while for me to even register what was happening. This guy could be the next great Brave starter.
No doubt. I think the interesting thing is going to be the development of the secondaries, but I think you bring up a great point in terms of why the Braves were okay with fast tracking a dude who really, I mean, I know you were talking about it when you were doing your preparation with AJ Ramos in terms of watching his minor league starts this year, that, you know, I think you had mentioned that when we were getting dinner that Ramos had pointed out that like the ball was popping a little bit, and you could even see that as well in terms of when he was throwing the breaking balls. And it makes sense, right? When you're a young arm who gets so low release wise, and then you're trying to spin something, it can just naturally pop up. It's just really hard to not make that phenomenon happen when you're throwing from such a low point. But you mentioned might have been something that they cleaned up relatively quickly, even in that big league debut, because it wasn't seemingly popping nearly as much. But even if it was, I think that the Braves were so confident that he could get up there and give them potentially just 5 with the fastball usage even at 70%, because it is a 70 present fastball now. And I think that is what really is remarkable. I think we did that Braves write up on March 6th, and this year clearly that fastball took another step forward. And you're 100% right. Like, he's realizing that 70 grade, because a 5.1 release height, getting 17 inches of induced vertical break
At 97, 98.
Yeah, that too. I didn't even factor that. The word outlier, especially in the prospect community, gets thrown out way too much. And I don't know, like, outlier by nature, there should only be one outlier, right?
Yeah.
Or how many outliers technically should there be?
I think there should probably be, and I'd be curious to see what Baseball Savant does. I think Savant has 3 to 4 guys in the 100th percentile of something. Mm-hmm. So like Giancarlo Stanton in terms of max exit velocity is in the 100th percentile. I think Judge is up there too. Like, there are 5 guys or something that fit in 100th percentile. That's how I feel outliers should be viewed. I think there should be 5 guys that are outliers in minor league baseball.
So I don't have it in front of me. Like, I don't have a scatter plot of like release height, you know, XY axis release height, induced vertical break. But for those that are listening that may not know, like, the lower that you release the baseball, the harder it is to induce vertical break, which is that perceived ride to the fastball. And the fact that he's getting, you know, from the average release height in Major League Baseball is 5'9", roughly. And the average induced vertical break on a 4-seamer is about 16.5 inches. So the lower that release height goes, the lower that induced vertical break will generally go on average, and vice versa. So if you're a 6'4" release height and you're only getting 17 inches of vert, technically that's slightly above average vert, but not for that release height bucket. So hitters are going to see that rise is not going to be the same because it's not rising as much. You're releasing from higher. So what he's doing to be getting 17 from a 5'1", I would imagine that not a single person is doing that right now in Major League Baseball.
So Kylie McDaniel put out kind of a side by side of the fastball specs, Didier Fuentes and Brian Wu in Seattle.
That was going to be the only comp I could give, but it's different shapes, but it's similar phenomenon.
Different shapes, similar phenomenon. I think by release height and vert, it's very similar, along with the VAA, the vertical attack angle. Like he goes at it from kind of a straight line approach,
Very
and that's
flat, yeah.
very flat. So I think that's probably where it coincides with Wu. And I know that the Marlins were gearing up for a Brian Wu adjacent fastball. So we're talking about a fastball that you've been in love with for the last 2.5 years in Brian Wu.
Oh my
and
gosh,
it's in a 20-year-old in Atlanta.
Yeah. And do you remember what the issue was with Wu out of the gate?
No secondaries.
No secondaries. Because guys like that work so well behind the baseball that it's like, all right, well, I know how to really spin it, but how do I, or spin it like backwards and stay true behind it. But getting back over it is kind of hard. But as you saw, Wu learned to do it. I think Fuentes is going to learn how to do that quite well. And yeah, I was talking to some people about maybe like, is this an audition and the Braves trade him eventually? I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out if they could get a star, of course. If you can go get a superstar and shake up this roster, I don't think you're going to let Didier Fuentes stop you. But this is why when people say, well, why do the Braves never have any top ranked prospects? Like, what are you analysts missing when they never have a top prospect, but then they end up having all of these guys helping them at the big league level? It's because if you go look at the Braves top, I was talking about this in the Discord. If you go look at the Braves top prospect list for us, sure, there was only one top 100 prospect going into the year, and it was Drake Baldwin, who was top 20. But then it's a litany of 50 and 45 future value guys, which means those are all guys that have a high probability of at least being a big league regular. And then what the Braves do is help unlock something more with those guys. So if one or two of them overachieves, you got another above average regular. And so the Braves may have had the least top 100 guys, but they wouldn't have ranked anywhere near the bottom of farm systems in Major League Baseball when we do the farm system rankings, because they have so many players who are at least 45 future value. Whereas a lot of other teams, it drops down to 40, 35 plus pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Fuentes is, but also they push these guys so fast to the big leagues like Fuentes that they graduate from prospect eligibility. So it's just not the same track. But I think this is a guy that could very easily, it may not happen this year, but you look at the upside now, having that fastball that's darn near outlier and seeming to already make improvements with the secondaries, this guy could be an absolute monster. And I think it says a lot about the Braves' confidence in him to bring him up to the major leagues when his secondary strike rate was 52% in the minor leagues entering that outing.
So
and it says a lot about the confidence he has too for a 20-year-old kid.
And the last thing on Fuentes, the comp that I really wanted to make, and I was chatting with Ben Ingram, the radio voice of the Braves, who I think is awesome. And if you haven't heard this guy's voice, it is made for Atlanta Braves baseball on the radio. It is so good. I was chatting with Ben Ingram, and I was saying, like, I want to make the comp AJ Smith-Shawver so badly because the progression through the minor leagues at 20 years old in that system was nearly a carbon copy. Yep. Smith-Shawver spent the entirety of the year prior to his debut in low A, and then he was a rocket ship from high A to double A to triple A and then to the big leagues at 20. Fuentes, it was an identical thing. Fuentes is better than Smith-Shawver was at that point. And Smith-Shawver, before blowing out, looked like he was achieving that form of a good major league starter. Fuentes, I think, is 2 steps ahead of where Smith-Shawver was because of that fastball. Yeah. And I want to tie a bow on that Wu comp. You mentioned Brian Wu. The worry was that he had no secondaries. Brian Wu, in his first year of Major League Baseball, had a 4.1 ERA. Since the start of the 2024 season, he's thrown 211 innings at a 2.99 ERA. It might be trials and tribulations for a 20-year-old Fuentes, but there's a chance in a year or two we're looking at him putting together 150 innings at a 3 ERA.
Yep. And when you got a damn near 80 grade fastball, or potentially is an 80 grade fastball based on execution, you're going to have a lot of wiggle room. And I have the specs now, like the general average for a release height of his The general induced vertical break from his release height is about 13 and a half inches.
And he's getting 17.
And he's getting 17. He's also getting another 4 or 5 inches of extension. And he's also throwing 2.5 miles per hour harder. So those are all things that raise it from the norm. That's an elite fastball. It's
I'm excited.
I know you probably have some Marlins fans listening to this that, are checking in. Just like, damn it, here we go again. I got to hear Jack talk about another like Braves exciting player, but that's what they do. And
Hey, guess who?
they've got
Guess who
some other
won the
arms on the
freaking
way.
game, pal? Guess who won
Yep.
the game? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
there you go.
Augustine
Hey,
Ramirez got him. He got a curveball and he sent it to Saturn. It was
Yep.
a shot from Augustine.
Yep.
And here's my
Hey,
thing. Clayton McCullough, the manager of the Marlins, was asked about Augustine participating in the home run derby, and he was all over that idea. I'm all over that idea as well. I think
is that a
Augustine will put on
possibility?
a show. I hope so. He might not have the cachet just yet to be a home run derby participant, but I think at some point we're going to see Augustine participate in a home run derby.
Oh, that'd be really fun. That would be a lot of fun.
That would be sick. So, all right, going from one plus heater to another. Chase Burns makes his major league debut today against the Yankees for the Cincinnati Reds. And again, a rocket ship. Chase Burns, 13 starts this year in the minor leagues. First taste of minor league baseball. In 66 innings, he's punched out 89, walked 13, and has a 1.77 ERA. This guy made 3 starts with Dayton in 11 and 2/3 innings in high A, 5 hits, 20 punchouts, and 5 walks. Then he goes to Chattanooga, and it was a joke. He made 8 starts. He was 6-1 with a 1.29 ERA. In 42 innings, he punched out 55 and walked 4. Then he went to AAA Louisville for 2 starts. 12 and a third innings, 7 hits, 3 runs. He K'd 14, and now he's up in the show. It is so funny to see that in minor league baseball against way better hitters than he ever saw in the ACC or in college baseball last year, he's the best version of himself already.
Yeah.
What changed from college Chase Burns to pro Chase Burns?
And I'm so glad you asked that question because just to add some context to that, 2024 in college, opponents had an OPS over 1,000 against his fastball. 2025 in professional baseball across all of the levels, opponents have a 637 OPS against his 4-seam
So
fastball.
how does that happen?
Command. He wasn't walking guys like crazy. Like, obviously not. He's also throwing it about a half tick harder. He was getting a ton of whiff, even though like the OPS numbers were high. Part of it was because, Wake is not the best environment in the world, but we also highlighted like it was getting hit on the road too. So I think high spin fastball that sometimes missed up middle of the plate, metal bats, back spinning. Yeah, I think that didn't work to his favor too much. He had big in zone whiff numbers and everything like that, but he's a guy that tends to cut the baseball a little bit because it's super high effort straight over the top. And I think he was struggling to control that, where now I don't think he cuts it on purpose. Like, I don't think he's able to just finesse the back door intentionally. I don't think the command is that insane. But I think he's gotten himself to a point where he knows what locations he's going to cut the ball more. So when he's going, to the arm side, he's maybe going to stay behind it a little bit more. Or when he's going to the glove side, okay, I might cut it a little bit more. And so kind of knowing where to start his fastball and where it's going to end up, I think has been really huge for him from the starts that I've watched, because then he is almost finding a way to backdoor it in there and hit his spots more effectively. So I think a big part of it is knowing what his fastball is going to do now and being able to locate that more effectively. And then the other side is his changeup. He at points last year fully scrapped the changeup. And I get it because he had the best slider in college baseball and he threw 99 to 100.
Yeah.
But I think hitters were just selling out for that fastball. They hit below 100 against the breaking ball and said, fine, throw 3 of those in a row. If you beat me, you beat me. I've got a metal bat and I'm going to try to clip a fastball. And
Sure.
They did. So if you had to respect the changeup, though, it would be a whole different equation. And now hitters have to respect the changeup. And of course, just the changeup being good makes him better because he throws that changeup and he gets a ton of whiffs with it. But the changeup being good also makes your job as a hitter to try to eliminate way more difficult. So now you've got a guy that at the plate, you're facing him. you can't eliminate just two things. And also, he's locating the fastball better. So he's able to set up the changeup better with that. And he's landing his breaking ball for a strike at a 70% clip, which again, he commanded it well last year, but not to this degree. So you have to respect a new pitch more, and he's setting them up better by locating. I did not think that he had this next step in him. I'll be honest, because it's so high effort, or at least it looks that way,
Yeah.
that I didn't see a way from that release point with that effort that he would make a huge leap command wise. I thought he just would learn how to throw the changeup a bit better, and he'd still be a really, really good arm. I didn't see that coming with this command leap, and I severely underestimated how good he could be. Still, obviously, had him as a top 5 or 6 player in the class, but man, this is one of the top arms in all of minor league baseball, and a potential frontline guy. It's been really cool to see how quickly he's made this leap.
That kind of takes us into the next conversation. You say he's one of the top arms in minor league baseball. Our guy Reds in Four, who is hilarious on Twitter and does great work covering the Cincinnati Reds, he tweeted on June 11th, Chase Burns is a better pitching prospect than Bubba Chandler. Anyone telling you otherwise has a critical case of take lock and will soon see the light. It's interesting, and that came after 2 rough Bubba Chandler starts, but Bubba Chandler now has 4 rough starts in the month of June. Bubba Chandler, in 4 starts in June, has worked 9 1/3 innings. 2 innings, he didn't get out of a first, then 4 innings, then 2 2/3 innings. And Bubba in 9 1/3, 14 hits, 12 runs. He's K'd just 5, walked 8. Opponents are hitting .333 against him in 42 at-bats. Is Chase Burns actually a better pitching prospect than Bubba Chandler or no?
It's so hard with the pitching stuff. Like, we just put out a top 100. Bubba was ahead of him.
Was
right?
the number
Like,
2 prospect in
yeah,
baseball.
yeah. I don't think I'm gonna rewrite that because Bubba's hit a command, a little lull here, but it's probably one of the toughest stretches he's had as a pro, and it's interesting because you think he'd almost settle in knowing that hey, he's going to get his opportunity soon. He's already succeeded at the AAA level, so I'm not sure necessarily what's going on. He has had some unique issues in the past, right? With like his elbow, and sometimes it can maybe affect the feel. So I hope that's not the case necessarily, because it's just been jarring to see the strike rate drop so significantly over his last handful of starts, where over his last 9 starts, even that's a little bit more than a handful. It's a 14% walk rate. That's just not who he is. I know it's a guy that can lose the zone here and there, but nothing like that. When you look at the overall pitch mix, and a big reason why I lean Bubba going into this year and in the early going of this year is that changeup was a big separator for me, because you have a fastball with better characteristics, same velocity, so that helped. The changeup is disgusting, and then yeah, it doesn't quite. The breaking balls are not quite to where Chase Burns is, but you have that cutter slider and a curveball that he would mix in as well. So I had the excitement of this 4-pitch mix and what seemed to be a better fastball that could push him ahead. But I mean, it's getting harder to make a case against Chase Burns, who just every single time you watch him, and that's a hard thing with pitching prospects, is like you don't want to be overreactive, but you only get to see them throw once a week, especially in the minors. They're not throwing every fifth day. A lot of times it's every sixth. So you have to look at that and adjust, but you also don't want to overcorrect. So that's the tough part. And right now, though, with what Burns is doing, it's hard to say anyone's better. Andrew Painter is hitting a little bit of a snag in AAA. Yeah. We're going to talk about that as it pertains to the Phillies and how they handle their rotation. Burns, they also didn't really give him a chance to hit a snag, right? Like if Bubba, if he was promoted right away after dominating through a couple outings in AAA, maybe it would have been a different story. But at the same time, I don't think anything Chase Burns has shown has indicated that he would have hit any kind of wall in AAA at all. So I can hear it. I can totally understand it. But it's also one of those things where you got to think about the next 6 years and how it all plays. And that's where it becomes a whole different conversation as well.
I have an odds questions on Burns versus Bubba in a moment, but I do want to highlight what happened to Bubba Chandler in 2024. You mentioned he's run into some weird elbow things. He broke his humerus in high school, his funny bone, and that in turn kind of creates a unique arm care pattern for Bubba Chandler. He talked about that with us on the call up last year, but this guy, like, he ran into that issue where he just needed to prioritize arm care to a different level last May. Last year, in 2024, he started the year 5 starts at a 3.6 ERA in AA. And then 11 1/3 innings, he walked 10 and had an 8.7 ERA in the month of May. But then he bounces back in June, 25 and a third innings. He punched out 35 and walked 3 and had a 2.49 ERA. So he had a shit month last year, and he still was one of the top pitching prospects in minor league baseball. So this year, I would assume he's just going through a little bit of a, arm care snag with that broken humerus and managing that, and then he's back to Bubba by July 4th. But the odds question that I have for you, what would you have set the odds at that Chase Burns debuts before Bubba Chandler coming into this year? Because Burns
Oh,
had yet to throw a pitch in professional baseball, and Chandler, we were saying this guy should be in the rotation out of spring training.
yeah, no, I would have that would have been a plus 500, plus
More
750.
plus,
Yeah,
I
maybe
would have gone
more.
plus 5,000, dude. Like
Yeah, honestly.
he was overstaying his welcome in AAA by the end of last year, and
Well,
Burns had yet to throw a pitch.
also after watching that spring breakout appearance from Bubba in person, where he threw 2 innings of some of the nastiest stuff I've seen from a prospect. Yeah, that might have been not an available line to bet on, to be honest. Like it's pretty shocking, and more of a testament to Chase Burns, and also just
Of
somewhat of a
course,
factor of uh, the unique aspect of the Pirates approaching it this way. But they're probably looking at this now and saying, "Hey, well, we told you so." Though
yeah, that's not fair.
I would say if he was up there, maybe he'd have uh, some better resources to get himself back on track and get right. I think with where the Pirates are at right now, I'd rather these struggles be at the big league level, but uh, obviously they wouldn't because this service time hasn't started yet. So I think that's always going to be the most important thing to organizations like that.
Oh, well. All right. We're going to get to some other big league transactions to wrap in a moment. Before that, quick break. Okay, we just spent the first half hour of this program talking about AAA to the big leagues. Now we go big leagues to AAA. Mets option Francisco Alvarez. Francisco Alvarez this year has a WRC plus just over 90. He's hitting, what, 236 right now? 3 homers so far. Alvarez has dealt with hand injuries in each of the last 2 seasons. He had that broken hamate because of a hit by pitch in spring training during live at bats. That slowed the start of his season. He did not play on opening day. He was out of the lineup for the first 3 weeks or so of the season this year, but Alvarez has not gotten on track with the power stroke. And the Mets feel like it's best to get that stroke back, whether it's contact stroke or power stroke, in AAA. Francisco Alvarez can be two things at the same time. One of the most promising young catchers in Major League Baseball and lost. And
Yeah.
it seems like he's a little bit of both right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I think in a lot of other situations, you look at what he's doing and it's like, okay, 91 WRC plus. He's an above average defender. He's a fine catcher. Like you're not pissed off in that situation, but it's Francisco Alvarez, right? And it's a guy that I think the big part of it too is he had 123 games in 2023 where he was a 3-win catcher, and you saw the 25 homers, didn't hit for average, didn't get on base. So you were excited about what could be, and clearly the floor was elevated. But you're like, okay, well, let's see him take another step forward. And then 2024, it was kind of more of the same. So it wasn't entirely disappointing, but it was okay. But he was hurt and he's dealt with stuff. And then you also had, as I alluded to in the last podcast, like the identity crisis as a hitter that was somewhat facilitated by his hitting coach at the time. Um, and then you have another injury, and in this third year where you're hoping this will be the leap, it is hard to differentiate or identify how much of it is multiple injuries and how much of it is the identity crisis, and then how much of it is maybe him just not actually being able to do some of the things that we believed he could be capable of doing. I don't that's the most extreme, and I don't think that's the case, and I think he'll get there. He's a 23-year-old catcher who's missed a lot of reps due to injury.
Yeah.
We were talking to Ryan Finkelstein, our managing editor, and of course, host of Locked On Mets, on a call, just kind of going over everything else business wise. But we always are going to fit in some baseball talk. Although he didn't seem too keen to your joke. He didn't seem to enjoy your joke about him watching Syracuse
I
Mets
said, "Are you
baseball.
locked into Syracuse Mets baseball right now?" He
He didn't
said,
even laugh.
"He
He didn't
said,
even laugh.
yeah." It
He's
looked like
usually a
he
good
was. It
sport.
looked like he was clicking around on something else, but it's
Nah,
okay.
I'm not bailing him out on that one. I
No,
think
but like,
because
listen, I'll eat shit on that joke too. Maybe I
no,
just caught him in a bad mood
no,
because
good joke.
Francisco Alvarez just got optioned.
No, good joke. But it's funny because I think he's processing that. We've talked about it so many different times about like what he can be and what it's going to look like. And ultimately, I think it's a totally different conversation than like a Brett Beatty or whatever. But he had alluded to the fact that maybe he just goes down to Syracuse and doesn't catch it all. And maybe this is just an opportunity for him to get right offensively, not think about all the preparation that goes into catching. I'd imagine, I don't know, but I'd imagine there's more preparation that goes into catching a David Stern's pitching staff. And that's another undertaking, but also multiple hand issues in your catching. Your hands get bludgeoned.
Yeah.
So that could still be affecting him. You can get right hitting wise. Maybe they still catch him. I don't know. But the idea of him DHing, focusing on the bat, and maybe just getting a little bit of a physical break. I know he's 23, but this guy's been through the ringer hand wise. It may be enough to get him right.
I would hope so. I think DHing for 3 weeks could make a lot of sense. And
Or at least like most of the games, not all of them. You can still catch a couple times a week.
Yeah, no, catch twice a week and then DH 4 times a week. That's totally fine by me. Maybe get an off day too. So like you catch twice, you DH 3, and then you sit one. I'm totally in on that for Francisco Alvarez right now. And my gut reaction to this when I saw that was, okay, Terens and Sanger are going to be the catching tandem right now. Terens has actually been swinging it decently well, so Terens is an okay enough time buyer at the big league level. It's not like the Mets need to tread water right now. I understand that they're in a race with Philly, and Philly's playing good baseball at the moment, and they just matched up over the weekend. But Francisco Alvarez's long-term offensive production outweighs any immediate Band-Aid you need to put on the catching situation. Terens can handle this for 2-3 weeks if need be. The pros of getting Francisco Alvarez right, even if it takes a month and a half, outweigh the cons of him not being in the lineup every day for the New York Mets in July. I'm totally in on him being in Syracuse for the month of July and then being right in August and September. Are the season numbers going to look awesome for Francisco Alvarez this year? No. I want to see that 25 homer guy back. I'm fine if he hits 210. I want Francisco Alvarez personally to be a 3 true outcome catcher that's one of the best defenders in Major League Baseball and a guy that can hit 30 homers.
Yep. Because here's the reality. He'll never be Mike Zunino. He is a better hitter than Mike Zunino. Even if he's selling out for 3 true outcomes, it will never get to a point where he's 4 WAR or Austin Hedges, right? Like, it's never going to get there. And you figure if he leans into the 3 true outcome thing, and that's why I thought the Eric Chavez thing was so backwards, because lean into your strength, especially as a catcher. It might be a different conversation when we're talking about a different position, but a catcher, you're going to accumulate WAR.
Yes.
What's the way that you're going to get to league average or better offense? It's going to be by slugging.
Bombs.
And then as you mature and as you get more ABs, you're going to learn how to walk more. You're going to learn how to approach the game and recognize spin. And that strikeout rate will slowly drop, and he's going to develop more as a hitter. I thought it was backwards to say, oh, you need to learn how to hit first and hit homers. That might have worked, in the 90s and early 2000s. Stuff's too good nowadays. You got to lean into your strengths and then let the other things slowly cook from there.
I think there are way more catchers in Major League Baseball than you would expect that can hit 260 in the major leagues. 260 with no juice. There's a reason I like Francisco Alvarez way more than Gabriel Moreno. I like Francisco Alvarez way more because he can hit 30 bombs and Gabby can't. Gabby can hit 260. He can hit 270. Hell, Moreno could hit 280 in his best year, but he's never sniffing 30 homers.
No,
Alvarez is sniffing 30 homers.
Yeah. And then the job is to catch, right? Like, and I think that's the exciting part of what can be. And then if he gets that average up to 230, 240, then and walks, you're got a guy that could easily get to 5 WAR. And it's like that Cal Raleigh conversation before he was this, and now look at what Cal Raleigh is now. The last thing I'll mention is it is both of those injuries were to his left hand, right? Where it was thumb surgery for a torn thumb ligament, and then it was hamate. And those are like 2 different parts of your wrist and hand. And imagine just catching 100, 95, 95, 95, and then trying to go hit. I do think a big part of this is injury management without putting him on the IL so he can actually work on the swing, because it really is a process coming back from that hamate. And we've talked about it. Like, you talk to guys who have gone through it, you can go play again, but your grip strength feels off. Your wrists aren't moving quite as well. It might feel a little bit stiff, especially with that lead arm on the swing and getting that barrel turned. And then imagine that on top of the fact that you have to catch all the time with that same hand. It's a lot for him while trying to work through things. So I like the idea of him just focusing on the swing, getting the ball in the air more, and giving that hand and wrist a little bit of a break.
I just gave the comp, I guess, or the apples to oranges comparison of Francisco Alvarez and Gabriel Moreno. Unfortunately, Moreno was on the IL. He didn't get optioned, but Gabby Moreno was on the IL with a hairline fracture in his index finger. That's my understanding. So you got hand issues for two of the best young catchers in Major League Baseball. These guys are always going to be compared because they were at the top of prospect lists. You had them both as top 10 prospects
Yep.
in all of baseball at one point, and
Yep.
here they are hitting snags. They both looked freaking awesome a year and a half, 2 years ago, and now they're going through their trials and tribulations at the major league level. If you had to project WAR over the next decade, who are you taking?
So the safe bet is Moreno because he's going to give you league average, slightly above average offense. I think you can fully count on that now. And he's going to defend, but I think, and this is health aside, right? Because both these guys honestly have been getting banged up way too much. It sucks. Um, I'd still lean Alvarez in the ceiling, but I do think the floor is higher with a Moreno just because of how consistently like he was on pace and he still is on pace for his best season of his career right now, Moreno, because he's defending
Yeah.
at the most elite clip we've seen him defend at. He's slugging a little bit more and he's hitting 270. But Alvarez could have seasons where he almost doubles up Moreno and WAR, and that can make up all the difference. So I lean Alvarez, but I do think it could get close. Just depending on how much Moreno can start to get on base a little bit more.
I'm going to throw a really weird wrench into this. I'm going to give you four guys. And over the next 8 years, I want you to stack them by WAR output.
Okay.
Alvarez,
Okay.
Moreno, Ivan Herrera in St. Louis, and Pat Bailey in San Francisco.
Oh,
That's the weird
you're
wrench
an
in
asshole.
this. I know it's totally the weird wrench in this because he can't hit, but he still might WAR with them. He will pace with them because of what he does defensively. So
And
just
Ivan
by
Herrera.
value behind the dish and in the batter's box, I want you to
And
stack those four over the next 8 years. Alvarez, Moreno, Ivan Herrera, Pat Bailey.
it sucks because I love Ivan Herrera and I think he's probably the best bat of that whole group. But he's just not going to catch that much. I even think for the next couple years, like he's going to be kind of going back and forth from DH and catcher. And when he does catch, he's not bad, but he's not going to be racking up WAR. Bailey's probably the easiest answer because that guy could 50 WRC plus his way
That's
to
what he's
four
doing.
WAR. Yeah, he literally is this year doing that. And he can't be this bad offensively for the duration of his career, essentially, because 8 years from now, he'd be 34. Uh, but the thing is the age curve for a guy like him, he could be Austin Hedges at 32, 33. How much WAR does he accumulate then? I, I'm gonna still lean Francisco Alvarez and
Okay.
and play the ceiling there. And I think it's so easy to forget how good this guy can be. Then I'm gonna go Pat Bailey. Then I'm gonna go. Then I'm gonna. Then I'm gonna go Moreno and Herrera. Herrera is gonna, I think, put up better offensive numbers. He's just not gonna get the opportunity to accumulate WAR like these other guys are going to.
Okay. I like that stack, and I'm bringing up this number again. Since the start of the 2023 season, catchers with a minimum 500 plate appearances. Patrick Bailey is the fifth lowest WRC plus in that stretch. He's got a 72 WRC plus since the start of the 2023 season. The guys below him with a minimum 500 plate appearances as a catcher: Jacob Stallings, Christian Vasquez, Nick Fortes, Martin Maldonado. But in terms of WAR, this guy is also fifth. And the guys ahead of him: Cal Raleigh, William Contreras, Will Smith, Alejandro Kirk.
Should he just not switch hit?
I'm thinking, could you DH for the catcher?
They did that for me sophomore year. I only played third base.
I only played first base. I think that's
Oh,
even
that's
more
insane.
embarrassing.
That's
Yeah.
insane. That's just like you guys need better. You need more
They
options. Like
DH for the first baseman, and I was the glove first baseman. I was Evan
that's
White
terrible.
before Evan White was a thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. At first is
20
crazy.
it was what, 2014 OPRF baseball, I think, 2015 OPRF baseball. I was
You didn't have
Evan White.
somebody who was the DH that couldn't just stand there and catch baseballs.
That's a good question. I think they liked what I brought to the table defensively at first
Get out
base.
of here. Get out of here.
I was
Um,
Scotty H picking machine, man.
yeah, you should have been Trey Morgan then at that point. Yeah, for me it was literally Mike Rothenberg, my good friend, his older brother, Matt, just his shoulder was messed up, committed to Harvard, raked. I wasn't gonna hit anywhere near there. His shoulder was jacked up, and I took over third, and I had a blast. And
Yeah, no.
all you do is just go out there, field the ball, go back in the dugout.
I think they liked what I could do with the leather, man.
Yeah, it's just picking that thing, baby.
Yeah. But
Foul territory grabs. Could over the shoulder that thing?
of
Oh
course,
yeah,
dude.
yeah.
I was a freaking athlete. I just couldn't swing.
I've never heard of the DH first, but maybe that might be the future. That might be how Evan White gets his way
Yeah,
back to the
but
big leagues.
that also tells you why I'm talking about baseball right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So there we go. But
Likewise.
I don't know. Pat Bailey,
But
yeah, he could stop switch hitting. That could be good.
so I'm thinking about this. Like, just both sides aren't great, but like one, just lean into it, and maybe it'll get a little bit easier. He's hitting 191, 259, 272. You brought up Carlos Zambrano the other day.
Yes.
Carlos Zambrano, and I guess that could be the way that you DH, right? You have a pitcher that swings it better.
Yes.
That would be the way to do it. Is there a pitcher in Major League Baseball right now that would be a better hitter than Patrick Bailey has been? And like, at what point, it would never happen, but at what point could you justify that?
I think Skeens would be a better. I think Skeens would be a better hitter.
Like,
Um,
if you had Zambrano on the roster right now, like, and this is not to be cute and be funny, and I don't want to like roast Pat Bailey. Like, he's a phenomenal baseball player, but it is an interesting conversation. Like, what would be the tipping point? Like, how good does a pitcher have to be hitting for you to do that? It's like too demoralizing to actually do it. But
right.
like, I'm looking at Carlos Zambrano in 2008 in 85 plate appearances. He hit 337 with 4 homers
He had
and a 127 WRC
yeah,
plus.
127 WRC plus, and then in 2005 he had a 92 WRC plus.
So 92, are you still doing it? 127, I think you maybe got to give him the bat.
92, I think you do it.
That's crazy. And the only other season I can think of, I think, was it Micah Owings that had a nasty one.
Maybe.
Dontrell Willis in 2007 had a 120 WRC plus and 80 plate appearances. And I want to say Micah Owings had a really, really good offensive season, if I remember it correctly. But
I got to check out Bumgarner too, because I think
Mad
Bumgarner had a
Bum was gonna be
nasty
one,
season.
too. Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. Micah Owings had a career 104 WRC plus.
Bumgarner in 78 plate appearances in 2014 had a 114 WRC plus, and he followed that up with a 104 in 2015.
Yeah. Like, okay, that's the perfect one. If Mad Bum was still on the Giants, there you go. I can't believe I just glossed over that. At what point is he swinging the bat for Pat Bailey?
Oh, that's so good. But
Yeah.
sorry, because he's the best defender on the planet. I think
Yes.
he might actually. I would probably put him second. I would go Alvarez 1, Bailey 2,
That's what I
Moreno
do.
3,
Yeah.
and Herrera 4.
I agree. Which
So.
is crazy because we're also talking about DHing him for a pitcher to hit.
Yeah. A couple more things here. Michael King. I just wanted to express my sympathy for Michael King of the San Diego Padres because there's been some recent reporting from Kevin Acee of the San Diego Union Tribune and Jeff Sanders of the San Diego Union Tribune as well, just about, King's recovery timeline. Obviously, it's been a pinched nerve in his shoulder. King is confident that he will pitch by the end of the year. But it seems unlikely that it'll happen before the All-Star break. And I just want to read this quote from Michael King. Quote, I've had days where I've been really, really frustrated with it and been really sore and felt like I didn't get much activity that day. And then I'll wake up the next day and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I feel like I can pitch in a game right now. So it's taking it step by step and knowing that the nerve can fire when it fires, but obviously it's that annoying process. I've got a ton of confidence that what we're doing right now is the correct thing to do, and I've felt my body progress in great ways. I just want to express my frustration for King. He was trending like an $150 million pitcher.
Yeah.
And now he's being robbed of a contract here. Zach Gallen had the ball in his court to make $150 million, and he's not going to. He's going to have to sign a one-year prove-it deal with somebody, and it'll be a high AAV. I assume like 1 for 25, Zach Allen. I hope Michael King doesn't have to do that. I hope King still gets
I
a
don't think
3 or 4 year contract. If Michael King was healthy for the entirety of this season, I think he's an $150 million pitcher. But that's not the
without a
case
doubt.
anymore.
Without a doubt, and I'm going to be very fascinated to see how they go about it, in terms of like what teams might be willing to pay, because there's no doubt that like if you extrapolate since the start of 2022, I mean you've got a 385 innings at a 2.76 ERA.
Yeah.
Um, it's really impressive stuff, and he can go so deep into outings as well. I'm trying to think of like a comparison, maybe like the Michael Wacha contract. He could get a little bit more than that. I know Wacha had a little bit of injury concern at points too, and wasn't nearly, I think, as dominant even in his better seasons.
But dude,
So
I was thinking like I was thinking slam dunk, no doubter that Michael King was going to make more money than Dylan Cease this offseason. And now it's slam dunk, no doubter that Cease is going to make more money than King.
yeah, because it's just he eats innings. I'm very interested, and it's going to be very medicals dependent and stuff like that, because he also is 30 years old. I'm with you. It really is. It is disappointing, and I hope he gets a chance to at least make 7, 8 starts at the end of the year, maybe a couple postseason starts, and he can bolster up that resume enough, because I mean I still would consider throwing 80 plus million at him,
Of
no
course.
problem. He's 30 years old. You go 5 years. I think you go 5 years, 100 plus still, and take a shot
If
and
I'm
feel okay about
Washington,
it.
I'm putting 5 for 110 on his desk tomorrow.
Yep, no doubt. And taking that, you take that chance. I think so. So I think he's still ultimately teams are gonna be so desperate for pitching, and he's still been so good when he's on the mound. If he comes back and looks the same, I still think he can push north of that 100. But I am with you. Like Cease is gonna get more.
Yeah. 29 teams are desperate for pitching. The
Yep.
Philadelphia Phillies might have too much pitching.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring this conversation up again, and for the umpteenth time, we're going to talk about the Phillies starting rotation. But I just watched Ranger Suarez shove 7 innings of 1 run ball, and then the day after, I watched Christopher Sanchez go 8 innings of 1 run ball. Wheeler is Wheeler, and Andrew Painter is building up in AAA right now. You mentioned Andrew Painter is hitting a bit of a snag, but Ranger Suarez, since his debut, or since his season debut this year, and it was rough. It was like I think like 3 2/3, 7 earned. If you start the timeline at his second start of the year, I think the only guy with a better ERA over that stretch is Paul Skeens. Ranger Suarez, second best pitcher in baseball since like May 31 or something, only behind Skeens. And Ranger might be expendable. I look at this Philly rotation and they have a spot surplus. Sanchez is amazing. They extended him. And the thing that drives me up a wall personally is when Nola comes back, he's the runt of the litter. They
Oh,
didn't
by a
need to
mile.
pay Nola, but they did.
Yeah.
And the Phillies, I love what they do from a veteran presence perspective. Right? They have guys that have been there. They have guys that are Philadelphia Phillies. Zach Wheeler is a Philly. Harper is a Philly. Turner's a Philly. Castellanos is a Philly. Schwarber's a Philly. Wheeler's a Philly. Nola's a Philly
Until 2030.
until 2030. And he didn't need to be one like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing that drives me up a wall. Aaron Nola is clearly the odd man out here, but you can't do that because you paid him and he's a Philly.
And that contract's, even though it's 24 or so year, it's underwater. So you have Mick Abel throwing at a level now. I know the peripherals aren't the best, but that's a guy that, I mean, we'll see. It's tough because then every time you start to say something about Aaron Nola, then he rattles off 6 starts where he has a 2.7 and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, where does he fit in? Because you mentioned Ranger's a guy that you might want to give the ball to in a playoff game, maybe second. Like, what's the playoff rotation look like right now?
Wheeler won. I think Luzardo too. I understand he had those blowups, but Luzardo is achieving that frontline potential that he's had for so long. Sunday Night Baseball was a treat to watch.
Yeah,
Luzardo's nasty, man. He's got frontline shit. So I go Wheeler 1, Luzardo 2, Sanchez 3, and I would personally go Suarez 4.
Ranger Suarez has a 1.43 ERA in the postseason in his career.
Dude.
37 and 2/3 innings, 40 strikeouts, 12 walks, a 2.79 FIP. So even if you do go that way, that's a guy that you want to have, right? And he was a little bit banged up last year. He's clearly healthy now and back to pitching at that outrageous level. It's funny to me because the other direction that my mind goes is Andrew Painter is this untouchable quote unquote player.
Yeah.
Why? Given where they're at right now. I understand he's special and he could be a really, really good arm. But where does he fit into the equation this year?
He doesn't. And that's the thing that freaks me out a little bit. Now, they need bullpen help. And here's the thing Sanchez and Ranger both have experience throwing out of the bullpen in the postseason. So I think they use Ranger as their bullpen Swiss Army knife in the postseason. But I also look at the contract situation. Ranger's walking after this year.
Yep.
And I think Ranger, even though he throws 90, could be an $100 million pitcher because of what he's done over the last handful of years.
You
It's
got to win the
tough.
World Series. You got to try to win the World Series this year, though.
You got to try to win the World Series. I don't think they trade him. If Ranger does walk, if they are not confident that they can bring Ranger Suarez back, it's so
you
tough.
still have Wheeler till what? He said he's going to retire after 2027.
After 27.
You have Luzardo with another year of control.
Yeah.
You have Sanchez extended.
Mm-hmm. Nola until 2030.
Nola until I'm 40. And then a Mick Abel with control to filter in there.
And Painter.
And then, and that's why I'm saying, like, Painter, yeah, he might have this exorbitant. He does have this exorbitant ceiling. He's a 4.25 in AAA right now. He's still developing, and he's going to be a really good arm. But I think you look at next year and you say, okay, well, that's where we slot him in, and now this rotation can really take a leap with another guy that's going to be the heir apparent to the front of that rotation, especially with knowing that Wheeler is going to potentially retire. But this whole team's going to look different in 2-3 years.
Yeah,
there's a lot of guys that are going to start aging out as well. I think for a guy that's been perceived as untouchable, I think given their rotational situation now, I just think they should hear it out a little bit. And it is Dave Dombrowski. Like, if you can get a franchise-altering piece with some control here, like I'm saying, you're only dangling Painter if you're getting a center fielder and a high leverage arm.
Yeah,
like, that might be hard to pass on.
Who puts together that package?
Like, or who do you? Yeah, what player puts together that package?
Yeah, like who's the trade partner there? Like who's that center fielder and who's that high leverage arm on the same team?
That's also the big
like
question.
I immediately just looked at Houston and I was like, how can they get Brian Abreu on this team and like enough to make this Painter deal worth it?
Yeah, that's hard. That's definitely hard. I look at like a Jarren Duran situation. I know he's not playing well right now, and it doesn't help the case. But
yeah, but if you got Jarren Duran and Chapman this year for Andrew Painter,
like it becomes interesting.
It's next level thinking, but you could also cash in on somebody like Ranger Suarez and go get Brian Abreu and maybe the Astros' top prospect.
Yeah, so that's the schools of thought. Or they do nothing and they just sit on a surplus, but I just don't think you can do that. So that's why I think
you can.
You got to consider
I actually
all
think
options.
you can because somebody's going to go down at some point. That's baseball.
Yeah. I'm fascinated. I would love to know what Phillies fans think. Let us know in the comments because I don't know. I don't know what you do there. Especially no one's going to come back soon. I don't even know what they do in the short term. Just like it's a fascinating. You're going to send Abel back down, so you're going to have Abel and Painter pitching in AAA. If everybody's healthy all year, the entirety of the season. So it just could be something where, okay, we'll just wait on Painter until next year, and that's fine. And you fit him in then. But I'm just thinking about from a farm system perspective, maybe they can go get a lot of the players that they want to get anyways. Like I think some of the trades that we even just mentioned, like they could probably pull some of those off without trading Painter. So maybe it's going to have to be a player that like you wouldn't even expect to really be available, that they somehow were able to pry away. And I don't know who that is off the top of my head, but I think they have to have at least a slight increase in willingness to just dangle and see what the heck you could possibly get.
And that could be fascinating. And I bet there are teams that come out of the woodwork thinking about possibly making that move.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we'll see what happens. Okay, soft landing in this episode. I just have one more guy that jumped out to me, and I was like, could he get traded? Miguel Vargas was the premier trade return last year for the White Sox in their weird deadline. But Miguel Vargas is hitting the crap out of the ball right now. This year, he's got a 114 WRC plus. He's only King 16% of the time, and he's a 1.5 win player to this point. Miguel Vargas looks like that fundamentally sound, all around good talent that the Dodgers had in AAA for a while. I'm wondering if the White Sox would entertain trade offers for Miguel Vargas, because that, at the end of the day, is a third baseman slash second baseman with ample control. And I think that he could get them a decent return. But you made the point before we hit the record button. At what point do they just start holding on to these guys? Are
Yeah.
we at that point yet? Or are they still so unbelievably far off that they would move Vargas for the right price?
I think, when you're a team in this position, you should always listen. And like, let's say the Yankees come knocking, and there's a couple, players that, and they don't have the best farm system, but there's some players that you really like, and uh, you can make it happen. Could make sense, but I do think you have to start clutching on to players that look like they can actually be building blocks for you. And you found a couple this year, right? Like Chase Mydroth, he's slumping a little bit, but that's clearly a guy that's going to be a big part of your future
Yeah.
up the middle. You look at Kyle Teel and Edgar Caro; they're having their ups and downs, but those are clearly going to be guys that are a part of your future.
You have your
I think the
closer
Grant
in Grant
Taylor,
Taylor.
you
Yeah,
have your
exactly.
closer like set up, ready to go. You found a starting pitcher in Shane Smith, and you have more potentially on the way. So I feel like they are getting closer here, and you're starting to see more pieces. And Vargas would be one of those that really helps. But I think they're still so far off that you could listen on anything. And if they gave them a significant haul, I think that you have to listen to it. But I would be leaning towards keeping him just because they might have the left side of the infield figured out. And like, it's not the sexiest in the world, but could be pretty solid all of a sudden.
You don't need sexy if you're the Chicago White Sox right now. You need decent to good Major League Baseball players, and they might have two decent to good Major League Baseball players on the left side of the infield. But I'm just saying, like, I hope Chris Getz picks up the phone if somebody wants to talk Miguel Vargas, because there's a chance that somebody pays a premium for that guy, and we're sitting here in a month scratching our head saying, how did they get that much for him? The answer is it's been pretty damn good.
Yeah, and 4 years of control, right? Or I think four
I think
total,
5.
five.
I'll check right now.
Yeah, I think you look at it and say, hey, we've got our left side of the infield for the future here, but like we can, if you can give us a package that we can't refuse, we can adjust that perception of what the future could ultimately look like. But I think with the struggles at points of Colson Montgomery and things like that, you're probably just excited to have an infielder that's up there and swinging it.
Yeah.
I will say Colson's looked better ish since coming off. I think was it the development list or the IL? I don't necessarily
No, he
know.
was. I
Uh,
think he was just sent to the complex, like he was just moved there.
and then the last 10 games he's been atrocious again. So like, yeah,
Yeah,
I think you might have to look at it and say we've got something here. We should maybe hold on for dear life.
yeah. 4.5 years of control of Miguel Vargas, so 4 after this year. So,
Talkman's gonna get him a nice little return.
Talkman, maybe Mike Talkman, who I think is 4th among ALDHs in All Star voting right now. Get Talkman to the Midsummer Classic, man.
Oh yeah.
Sure. So that's our program. Everything you need is in the episode description. What else you got? Anything?
Luis Robert has a 572 OPS. That's all
Yeah,
I
that's a
got.
good that's a good last word there.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But yeah, join our Discord. It's been awesome. I hopped back in last week to do just a late week Q&A and all that stuff, but we got things cooking all season long. And
Yeah, we got a new competition going in there where you can win prizes as well, called Win Streak. You literally just pick a team to win each day, get on a win streak, and can win a cash prize. Can also win cards, stuff like that. Super fun. Really excited to have that wrinkle in our Discord as well.
perfect. And get your white rope hats. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday.